Welcome to another episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, and today we are going to discuss the Hollywood Tower Hotel's lobby area of the Concierge Desk and all of the accoutrements that are around it. There is quite a bit to talk about, lots of details, and it's going to get pretty nerdy and dorky, and I like that because you're going to learn about some common day items that you see all the time and a little bit of the storyline behind them. So with me to discover and take care of all of your hotel needs is Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Kate, what's going on?
I'm checking in, ready to jump back into the lobby. Where we left off last time was with the mahjong table, was pretty much all we got to last episode because there's so much going on in this this attraction. There's so much in this lobby that's so layered, and it's not just like antiques, it's not just the history, it's not just like the Twilight Zone, it's like layers of stuff. So that's why we decided this episode to just focus on the concierge desk. So in case you're wondering what that is, it's when you walk into the lobby and it's directly to your right hand side. So you'll see a desk with a lamp on it, some suitcases, a little cabinet on the wall, and we're going to talk about all of these things in this area and the details that you probably missed while you were walking through this attraction.
Yeah. There's so many things scattered on this desk. So like when you first go into this area, you'll notice that it still has that opulence, but it's as if a guest has literally set down their briefcases and their fedora and their cane to talk to the concierge. And the concierge desk is littered with items, both office and otherwise. So I don't know how we want to tackle each and every area. Do we want to start to the right and then get to the floor and then go to the desk and then go to the side? How do we want to tackle this area?
So the way that I organized it was starting with the desk itself and then
Let's do that.
Going
Let's start
around.
at the desk.
So, okay. I know that there are some books on here that, Kirk, I could not see any sort of titles on these books whatsoever. Were you able to find anything about these books?
No, but I will promise you that next time I ride Tower, I will do my best with a zoom lens to take some photos because I had not seen anybody with like a behind the scenes of it. But I will go back with my zoom lens and take some photos so that we can discover what these bindings say because they are legitimate books and they do have writing on them.
Yeah, they're just covered in like a thick layer of dust. So it's very, very hard to see what's on it, as is the whole desk, as is the theming, because of course these people, if just to revisit very briefly, the story of this area is that people disappeared on the night of October 31st, 1939. Lightning struck the tower and everybody disappeared. So we're seeing like what was left when these people just disappeared from the tower. This is a shot you probably wouldn't see quite as much. This is looking from the other direction as if you're sitting behind the desk and looking at the objects on it, which is quite a close-up of the things that we see here. And you can see the books, but we still can't see what the titles are. You see some glasses that are sitting on there, which I think might allude to a specific Twilight Zone episode, but I couldn't remember the title. So I'm gonna do my homework on that one. We also see something to the right there, which is something that looks like it's a rocker with a little handle on top, and that is actually a rocker ink blotter, which was a handheld device with felt or paper attached to a curved base that could be rocked over the written page to absorb excess ink. So this would be if you were using like a fountain pen, which we do see on the opposite side of this desk. If you're looking towards the desk, it's on the right-hand side. There's a fountain pen there. Here's kind of a close-up of what an antique rocker ink blotter looks like. They've had something to kind of dry ink for a long time, as far back as writing existed. In 400,000 BC, different materials were sprinkled on the paper to dry ink and prevent smudges. Like pounce, which I learned is made up from
What is pounce?
Yeah, it's made up from ground up bones of cuttlefish. Very specific.
Okay.
But they also use things like salt and sand. But in the early 18th century, hand blotters were invented, kind of like this one, so that they wouldn't have to sprinkle things and waste salt because it was expensive. So they would have usually either paper or felt on the bottom. This one shows, I think it's mostly felt on this one. But the arrival of the ballpoint pen in 1938, which is the year before this is set in, ballpoint pen was invented and then led to the hand blotter's demise, as well as the fountain pen, because it just didn't leak ink anymore. which we've talked about pen history before, so I didn't want to go there too deeply. We did chat about that in our Mr. Toad series, but we hadn't talked about hand blotters yet, so I hope you enjoyed our little walk towards hand blotters. I don't know.
I'm not going to lie. I researched them. I thought it was fascinating.
Oh, what do you have on them? I want to
No. I had pretty much everything that you had. The big thing, the only thing I could think of is I'll add like a story element to this, right? So like, why would the concierge have a fountain pen? Well, because they could be writing checks. They could be doing anything in terms of like giving like directions or writing down numbers. And they would need to be writing quickly because they're dealing with guest needs. So where, somebody who's writing at home doesn't necessarily need a blotter because they can allow it to dry. So I think this would be something that's like, write something real quick, blot it, fold it, give it to a guest. Guest can use it. It adds a little bit of storytelling elements of how quickly paced the concierge was helping guests' needs in this actual functioning hotel.
Yeah. And I see a comment also in our chat this from Brittany that says maybe the glasses are from the Time Enough at Last. It's about a guy who locks himself in a bank vault to read while he's on his lunch break at work, and basically everyone gets wiped out from the earth besides him. And I love that thought, except that those glasses are, or at least used to be, present in the library, and they had cracks in them, which is part of the storytelling. Because these glasses don't have cracks in them, I don't think it's necessarily from that particular episode, but that is a really good guess, Brittany. Thank you for mentioning that. Another thing we see on this desk is a phone. And Kirk, you said you had a couple of things to share about the phone?
Yeah, so rotary phones were a rather new invention. They first get patented in 1891 and then get commercially used in 1919. The model that's actually being used here is a Western Electric, and this is model 302. They had a 202, but it was a lot smaller, but this is the exact phone that we can see in use here. The only thing that I forgot to mention is the inventor of this phone was Almond Brown Strawwinger, and he invented it back in 1892. But it was known for its very immense heavy metal body. It made it really sturdy, so that would make sense for having it here. And it had a cloth cord originally, which is kind of unique because in here it's a plastic like corded cord, not like the cloth version of what you would have originally had. So.
Oh yeah, but in the tower itself, were you able to tell, is it a cloth cord in there?
It's not. It's actually a plastic cord. So hang on. If you here, I can show you a picture.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about the picture you were showing or the one that they
no,
had.
the one that I was showing was like a straight shot. This one though looks like it is a replacement that's plastic.
Yeah, it does look like it's plastic.
Because do you remember how in my day all of our electrical cables were cloth and they would get frayed and it would be terribly dangerous to plug in your vacuum cleaner. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, do you remember like the old ones that was like just two prongs, never grounded, and it was like a circular plug?
Yeah.
Like that. And it literally, you would like see the screws where they would screw the outlet to the plug itself and the cord.
Yeah.
Like that whole entire thing. Like you could take it apart. All that stuff is now pressed and molded. So it's a lot different, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's bring back memories. So the other thing I looked at here was this lamp, which was terribly fascinating because it's such a beautiful lamp. To me, I did a lot of research on this and I wasn't able to find an exact model. Were you, Kirk, able to find an exact model?
Oh, I was.
Oh, good. And I have other stuff about it, but why don't you tell us about it?
Okay. So, based on our notes, we have it listed as a 1920s Art Nouveau Tiffany lamp. But here's the problem, is that most of the Tiffany lamps, when I would look and find them, they were all stained glass. Now, Why is that significant or important? Because if you look at the actual one that's located here in the tower, it is not. It's all one piece of frosted painted glass. And then it has like a bronzed base that kind of is fluted, almost looks like a tall vase, if you will, for the base of this. However, I was able to track down the inventor of this style of lamp, which this lamp is called a handle lamp. And the Handel Lamp Company was founded by Philip J. Handel, which you can see here in 1885. And in the golden era of lamps in Art Nouveau in the 1900s to 1930s, they were known specifically for their hand-painted lampshades on domed glass, often of landscapes, florals, exotic imagery. So the type that we see in the tower would be one of those single-piece clear frosted glasses that are painted on the inside of the shade. And they would call these reverse-painted glass lamps. So that way you don't have the texture of the paint on the outside, but you get the silhouette of the actual imagery on the outside coming through because the light is illuminating it. A lot of times, though, they would do woodland scenes, Japanese-style gardens, exotic animals or ruins. The bottom was typically either bronze or spelter, but sometimes they could be made of brass, and they were often stamped with a metal tag that said Handel on the underside. So we would never actually be able to tell if this is a Handel lamp or not.
It's probably glued down.
That thing is affixed to the bottom of that. I was able to find some additional versions. So here are a variety of Handel lamps. I was not able to find the specific one, but there are lots of tree landscapes. So I focused on tree ones from the Handel company, and there are a lot of demonstrations of this. Even some that have like tree branch like structure, like a trunk system, which I thought was kind of cool. But there was very few of them. That was very rare. Most of them were very similar to the tower, where it's that bronzed look, and they go from, in like personal auctions, it seems like they sell roughly around $2,000 to $15,000 for these Handel lamps.
Wow, it's not cheap.
They are not a cheap lamp.
Okay, so this is really interesting because I had heard that it was a Tiffany lamp. Okay, and so in my research, I found a different kind of lamp that was called Pearpoint that had a lot of these different kinds of lampshades that look similar using this reverse painting technique. To me, is like that seemed to be, I don't know if they like fed off of each other in terms of like one came before the other. That I didn't find out. So I do want to talk a little bit about the reverse painting technique that is on these lamps, though, because it is used elsewhere in Disney history. And so reverse painting itself involves applying paint to the back side of a surface, like Kirk mentioned, like glass, so the finished image is viewed from the front. The details are built up from front to back, creating a layered effect. And the process requires careful planning and precision, as the artist must anticipate how the layers will appear when viewed from the front. It's actually very, very old 14th century technique that takes a tremendous amount of skill. This is the Baroness of Disneyland. This is Glendra von Kessel, who is currently in this photo painting, reverse glass painting, the mirrors that you see in the New Orleans Square perfumery in Disneyland. So this is just one of those panels from it. Just gorgeous. Even if you don't like perfume, don't ever want to shop for perfume, you need to go into this store in Disneyland because this is an absolute incredible work of art that took a lot of labor to do. So you can see Glendra von Kessel here. She actually was a baroness. She came over, I want to say from Austria, maybe Germany. I'd have to look it up. It was during wartime. They were actually escaping everything that was going on in Europe at the time. You can see on her ring, or her ring finger there on the left side, she actually wore her husband who passed away, his signet ring for being a baron there, and it was way too large. So I heard from Joyce Carlson, she said that she used to like hold her finger together all the time to like keep the ring on, keep it from sliding off, but she always wore it in memory of her husband. So you can see that in that photo there. But anyway, she didn't actually finish this entire work. She passed away before she finished this project, and Dorothea Redmond finished the artwork in this. But you can see this picture of her inside the perfumery in Disneyland. And I just wanted to tie in with a little bit of Disney history because that reverse painting technique was so important in that part of Disneyland.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. So let's chat for a little bit about this cane hat suitcase situation that's sitting on the corner of this desk. And this is actually something we do see. These actual props were used in the pre-show film that we see, with this black and white when we step into the library. They repurposed those props and put them here in the lobby to, add validity to the storytelling as well. So we see them in the very beginning of this. It's very, very brief. This man passes in front of the camera and crosses in front of the frame, and he is wearing the hat and carrying the cane, and that is his belongings according to the storytelling of the tower. But these props, I think, also might be alluding to this particular episode of Twilight Zone, which is season 1, episode 2, which is called One for the Angels. And a real brief summary of this is a down on his luck sidewalk salesman, Lou Bookman, is confronted by Death, who's the guy who's standing behind him, who tells him he must die at midnight, but Bookman strikes a deal to postpone his own passing long enough to deliver one last great sales pitch for the angels. When Death quietly chooses another's life instead, which is like a little girl, and it's super sad, Bookman sacrifices himself by selling Death on his wares, and in doing so saves a young girl and seemingly earns his spot in the afterlife. So I kind of wonder if the place that these props are set not only is alluding to this episode, but also because this is one of the earliest episodes of the Twilight Zone, the fact that they're so close to the entrance of this attraction is not lost on me. I think it's like this is an early episode. This is also one of the first things that you see when you walk in is this hat and the suitcase specifically that's on the floor that you see here. It just reminds me so much of his case. Even though it is a suitcase, it reminds me so much of the one that he would use to sell all of his wares. And so it's not exactly his props, and he also didn't have a cane, so that's a whole nother thing. But he was elderly in this, and it was kind of his time to go. And so I think that there is some storytelling there that's alluding to old age, mortality, themes of what's after this, what's in the great beyond, that are coming through here. This actor who played this character, Lou Bookman, is named Ed Wynn, and you probably recognize him, Kirk, from being the voice of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. You can see him here in the live action reference footage for Alice in Wonderland at the Tea Party. And he also was in a lot of other movies like Mary Poppins, Babes in Toyland, Absent-Minded Professor, a lot of Disney movies. So he is also a significant character. That actor is in Disney history as well. So there's another connection there. I do have some things about the magazine underneath, but do you have some things you want to say about the hat and cane and stuff specifically?
Yes, I do have some things that I want to talk about. Specifically, let's talk fedoras and let's talk briefcases. We'll start with the dome piece with the fedora. Now, fedoras, if you don't know the etymology, it comes from a Russian play from 1882 by Victorian Sardou, and it was set in the Russian Empire in the 1870s. And the plot was around the princess Fedora Ramazov, who is engaged to the Count Vladimir Yarskin, the son of a St. Petersburg police chief.
All right.
Princess Fedora's fiancé, Count Vladimir, is found mortally wounded, presumably killed in an anarchistic attack. Fedora vows to avenge his death and suspects Count Loris Ipanov as the perpetrator. She travels to Paris to track him down. In Paris, Fedora encounters Loris. Unaware of their connection to Vladimir, Loris confesses to killing him, but claims it was not a political assassination. Eventually, Fedora confesses to Loris that she was the one who sent an incriminating letter and renounces to her, and Fedora goes to prison and dies there. But why is this significant to hats? Well, if you could see this picture of this fedora, it was a soft cloth hat, and it's actually where the etymology back from 1882, we get the term fedora for those hats. These hats were obviously very popularized for Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart, Frank Sinatra. They were very structured, indented crown, and waterproof, which made them great for all 4 seasons. I just like my little hotel nods in there. But obviously, a fedora on there implies a guest of taste and status, and clearly disappeared. So that would be my fedora talk. Do we want to talk briefly about briefcases?
Go for it.
All right, I'm going to be really, really, really quick because there's a lot of briefcase talk, and I don't want to get too in the weeds with it. Okay. So, all right, ready? briefcases go all the way back to the Roman era, where the earliest versions were leather satchels used by Roman legionnaires to carry mainly rations and their tools. I actually was able to find an image of one of these Legionnaire Roman briefcases, like all the way back then, and it had that metal attachment clasp that we also see here in the Towers briefcase, which I just think is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then in medieval times, it evolved into these things that were called scrips or satchels, and they were used by messengers or clerics to carry documents or books or sometimes coins. This is like when pocket development kind of comes around as well. And some of these had a crossbody strap, and some of them were just handheld. It depended on the style. And then we would eventually get to, in the 16th, 17th century, the word brief being used as legal language, and solicitors would carry these brief bags.
Oh.
And so that's where these brief bags originates, and then eventually we get to our modern day classic hinged style used by lawyers, doctors, executives, obviously people of class and that would be staying at the Tower Hotel, and typically were made of leather. So there you go. There's a brief synopsis on the briefcase.
Interesting. Brief bag.
Brief bag.
We
brief
need to bring.
bags.
We have to bring back the word satchel. I like that word.
Satchel.
We don't say satchel enough.
You know, when I was in college or even post-college, I had a messenger bag. Do you remember messenger bags? Nobody really has messenger bags
Elliot
anymore.
Does. My husband is old school, and he likes his messenger bags. So
when I was a teacher, I used to carry my laptop and like a bunch of little stuff in a messenger bag.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we see in our chat, Christina saying it further evolved into what we have today, the merce, the man purse.
The purse. Yep.
I think the messenger bag falls under merce category there.
I'm pretty sure afterwards came the loungefly.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so underneath this hat, there is also something that's there that's pretty difficult to see, but it does exist. It's actually a copy of Photoplay magazine from January of 1939. I do have the actual cover of it. Hedy Lamarr is on the front here, and it says it features 4 pages of hilarious star caricatures by Walt Disney. So this is what it looks like in there. This is the caricatures they're talking about. If you look inside the magazine, it is Mother Goose Goes to Hollywood. It's a profile of that short, which does like allude to different celebrities and like that they're definitely not styled after throughout it, which is kind of funny. And that there's a second spread here of that. Did you have anything you want to say about this in particular, Kirk?
I did not research it, so I am just enjoying the ride.
So I was intrigued though, because the other thing that was on the cover of this, it said, it's kind of like hook of the magazine, if you will, is it says Hollywood's unmarried husbands and wives. And I was like, ooh, scandalous, for the 1930s. I'm like, what in the world is unmarried husbands and wives? Because you kind of have to be married to do that. And it's interesting that it talks about Lombard and Gable, Stanwyck and Taylor, among others. It's basically like it caused a whole rush of marriages after it was published because of the scandal of this. Some of them, though, were like people who couldn't get out of their marriages because their spouse wouldn't release them from a divorce. So they were estranged from their spouse, but basically like living with other people. And some of them were just like, they just live like besties. And they should be married, but they're not. And it was really interesting. Lots of speculation about these particular couples, but it definitely is a window into the time period in the 1930s of this was considered extremely scandalous at the time, these unmarried husbands and wives. So
I like how people have firearms. They're smoking with pipes. It's quite the scene.
They definitely show the kind of like masculine women, I think, is this kind of thing. It's like the unconventional woman, I think was what they were trying to highlight.
She's wearing jeans.
Pants. Like, what's happening? Anyway, so I just thought that was interesting. That is this Photoplay magazine that's sitting underneath this hat, and that is what's inside it.
I did notice one of the caricatures is Groucho Marx, and I had to look back to see when he was really popularized, and it was like right in the 1920s is when he really was kicking off with Animal Crackers, Monkey Business, Duck Soup, A Night at the Opera. So
Yeah, they definitely used a lot of specific celebrities in this particular short, and then reference them.
We like to put our celebrities in pants. Sorry, that was a throwback. That was a throwback to women in pants who know what they want and they're unmarried.
That's right. I think he's in jeans last time.
Scandal.
Better than those women from the last episode the white women who steal.
Keep your mahjong tiles safe. We definitely learned that.
Anyway, moving on. So something that is almost impossible to see on this desk, but is a note. So that's, the fountain pen and whatnot makes sense. This is one of the things they were writing. And this note actually references 2 different Twilight Zone episodes. So it says, travel itinerary for Mr. and Mrs. Ransom, Los Angeles to New York, November 1st, 1939. Global, and then it has Global Air Flight number 33. So these are 2 different episodes. One is, let me see if I have a picture for it. So the Global Air Flight 33 is the one that we've talked about before, where they go back in time to 1939. And then the other episode is one that we mentioned on the previous episode of Distory, where we talked about the tea set and the meaning of that, with this couple that goes on a cruise ship that essentially disappears. They're on a cruise ship with all these elderly people that the elderly people know it's their last cruise and they're not going to come home from it. And they're horrified when this young couple steps on board because they know that they're not going to make it. And so it's kind of it's a long episode. It's like 40 some minutes, which is long for a Twilight Zone episode. And it's really interesting to see the evolution of this couple because they come on board and they're like the edge of divorce. They really, like, I think when we were watching it with my kids, I was like, this guy is red flags. Like, girls, like, listen, like if your man treats you like this, you need to pay attention because this is not okay.
But he loves me.
But, as they're hanging out with these like older couples and whatnot, and like they're kind of like seeing the value of love. And there's some really beautiful speeches, like really well written episode. But anyway, the whole point is that they have this now written on this note, this reference to them making this journey. The rest of it says New York to Southampton, which is the cruise that they were on, was supposed to be New York to Southampton, which is Southampton is London port, November 5th, 1939. SS Lady Anne returned to Los Angeles. So they're supposed to be returning to Los Angeles, but the couple does, just to not leave you in suspense, the couple does get booted off the boat. They actually like evict them off the boat into a life raft, and then the rest of the ship goes off into the Twilight Zone. So very worthwhile episode to watch if you have time. That is in season 4, episode 17, called The Passage on the Lady Anne.
They're lucky, man. That is some luck.
Well, I do think, there's definitely a parallel story here to the Tower of Terror story. These well-to-do people disappearing into thin air because they're all very kind of wealthy people. They say the entire boat is first class and then they disappear never to be seen again. So it makes sense that they would use this directly on the concierge desk. They would write about a story that alludes to that.
Where is our guest who they're not allowed to check in because they're so in love and they get saved by no vacancy?
Right. We need that.
We need that.
We need that.
I'm going to put a letter on that immediately.
Well, before we move on, I think this is a good place to just pause really quickly and just chat about some things we have going on at Walrus Carp and Disney Cicerone. So, Kirk, what do you have going on over there these days?
Oh, boy. Let me tell you. Today we're going to get shady over at walruscarp.com because we have 3 different styles of polarized sunglasses. Free shipping on everything, and you can look stylish and profile-ish as you're going to your own Twilight Zone and scoop yourself some spooky mansions, maybe some pineapple ice cream shades, or a little premium bar in your life. But yeah, you can get those at walruscarp.com.
Awesome. Those are great sunglasses too.
I used to wear straight up Ray-Bans all the time. This is like no joke, and I'm like, I don't worry about these. Like, I would always worry with my Ray-Bans, but like affordable price, but they perform like Ray-Bans. They're perfect. They absolutely are perfect. And of course, they scream all the theme parks.
And I am notorious for losing my sunglasses at Disney. Like, I'll stick them in my pocket. They fall out. Like, so I don't like to wear really, really, really expensive sunglasses.
Yeah. Why would you?
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got going on over there?
Well, it occurred to me that I've been talking a lot about the nonfiction book that I just released, which is a Glimmer of Pixie Dust, Finding Our Hope in the Disney Story. But I haven't really talked too much recently about the 3 books that I wrote that are part of a fiction series that is called Pixie Dust in the Parks is the name of the series. But I specifically wanted to highlight the 3rd book in the series, which does have just a little bit of Tower of Terror, Sunset Boulevard in it. So if you like Hollywood studios, this might be a great one for you. This one actually does also feature 2 cast members who are Disney history nerds. And it is a romantic tale, but it incorporates lots of Disney history into it. I didn't realize when I was writing it that the Liberty Bell was going to close. So I wrote this before that, and one of the cast members works on the Liberty Bell. So there's lots of history and nostalgia and, things about the Liberty Bell. So if you're feeling sad about that situation, about the Liberty Bell going away, this might be a great read for you to recover it. And it's a good summer read too. So you can, wherever you're traveling this summer, take Disney along with you. Let's jump back in, and we're going now from the desk to the floor. So there are a couple of suitcases here on the floor, which might not seem too sinister, but there is a Twilight Zone connection specifically for suitcases themselves. So in season 1, episode 21, there's an episode called Mirror Image, where a suitcase, among many things in this episode, a suitcase mysteriously moves from one location to another in the room. So basically a woman starts to question her sanity. It's like the suitcase is gaslighting her, if you want to you want to think of it that way, because she swears she checked in or didn't check it in, or she swears she had it with her and then it's in the checked in area. It moves all of a sudden, and she goes to talk to the porter about it, and he's like, what are you talking about? I don't have any memory. Nobody has any memory of the thing she has a memory of. And so it makes her question her reality. So it's actually very creepy that this suitcase moves all the time. And so I think that there is a storytelling piece with these suitcases, not just the fact that they were abandoned by the people who were checking in or whatnot, or checking out, but that also they are connected to the Twilight Zone in that way as well. And then underneath the suitcases, there is a Persian rug, which Persian rugs were so popular in the 1930s. And I was like, why are these rugs so popular? Besides the fact they are beautiful. They're beautiful rugs, to be sure. But this is something that we have talked about previously on this series and also in The Haunted Mansion. This Western Orientalism in the early 20th century saw a wave of fascination with the East in art, decor, fashion, like we've talked about Egyptomania before, which we'll see again in this attraction later. So Persian rugs embody this aesthetic, offering rich colors, intricate patterns, and tangible sense of cultural history. A Persian rug was often seen at the time as a central design element, so you can design a room around your Persian rug. Persian rugs offered a symbol of status and sophistication, associated with wealth, refinement, and exoticism. It suggested good taste and worldly sophistication. So if you have a very expensive hotel with expensive clientele, having a Persian rug would mean you're catering to them. Persian rugs were seen as long-term investments and heirlooms, so you buy once, keep forever, unlike fleeting decor trends. And by the 1930s, they had improved shipping routes and international trade agreements, and they all made them easier to import rugs from Iran, which was then Persia. That's how it was known. Rugs were being exported at greater numbers than ever before in this era, and that's why we start to see them pop up a lot more in these various places. Let's pop over to the wall, which we actually see this 13 Diamond Award presented to Hollywood Tower Hotel by the American Automobile Association.
What's fun about this award is AAA rated has been a long-standing for hotel awards, very similar to Michelin star rating. AAA is doing hotel awards similar to Michelin, with tires doing it for restaurants. But this was actually created for the Tower Hotel by AAA. So this is a very special, one-of-a-kind award, the 13 Diamond Award. And it says from the American Association of Automobiles. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And 1939 is when it was presented. And it does show 13 diamonds up at the top underneath the AAA logo.
What I want to know is, why does your picture look like that? It must have deteriorated so much from mine.
A lot.
I'm like, wow. It looks terrible. It is the American Automobile Association, and I did actually do a little bit of research into this. I am a AAA member. My family has always been since, like, I remember my grandpa being a member of AAA, and so we just have it because in case our car breaks down and I don't panic then. But they do a lot of other things. So just a little brief history of AAA. The American Automobile Association was founded in 1902 in Chicago, Illinois, in response to a lack of roads and highways suitable for automobiles. 9 motor clubs with a total of 1,500 members banded together to form the AAA. Some of the things AAA has done historically is helped motorists navigate a country that at the time had few road signs or consistent highway systems, because you have to think that we're moving from horse and buggy territory to automobiles. So there wasn't really the infrastructure to hold this yet. They also had travel guides that set the standard for roadside assistance and vacation planning for years to come. They also advocated for the development of the U.S. highway system. So AAA played a crucial role in lobbying for better roads, contributing to the creation of the Federal Aid Road Act of 1916 and supporting the later development of the interstate highway system in the 1950s. The roads previously were made for horse and buggy and were not great for automobiles. They also pioneered the roadside assistance services, which you can see kind of here in this picture with these 2 gentlemen laboring over their automobile. They also established the Diamond rating system. They had it for both restaurants and also hotels. The rating system started in 1937 with hotel and restaurant listings in AAA travel guides. So the Diamond system, though, however, wasn't formally introduced until 1976. So while they did have a rating system in place at this 1939 year for the Tower of Terror, they would not have had diamonds in place at that point. So it's a little bit of an inconsistency there because they wouldn't have existed at that point. But the diamond rating system helped travelers make informed decisions about lodging and dining using a consistent independent evaluation. So properties are rated from 1 diamond, which is basic and no frills, to 5 diamonds, which is luxurious world-class service. And ratings are often based on unannounced in-person inspections and professional evaluators. That's how they decide how many diamonds you get. But never 13. This is the only one that has 13.
Yeah. It's awarded one of the highest awards you could possibly ever have because it doesn't exist.
Up against the wall, there is this wooden cabinet as well, which is an early 17th century Spanish Renaissance secretary, which is essentially a writing desk. So this is known as a vargueño, or bargueño, is so called because it was thought to have originated in the village of Vargas. I'm probably butchering all of that pronunciation, so sorry. In the province of Toledo. It is the earliest form of a writing desk known and was conceived to show the expertise of the Spanish craftsmen having such an opulent carved and gilded interior. Although extremely heavy, they were used as a traveling desk within the Spanish global empire and were highly prized as an object of status within the Spanish courts. So that's likely why we see this particular desk, the one that we see in the tower. If you look on the sides, it has handles. And I'm like, I would not think that thing would be very portable.
Yeah, how are you moving that thing?
So on the top, they have a drop front chest where they can actually pick that part up and transport it. And on the bottom, they'd either have a chest of drawers or sometimes it was replaced by a stand, like this one has a stand on the bottom. So I don't think you would necessarily take the stand, or if you did travel with it, you would take them in 2 pieces. So it was easier to carry probably. But you can see a couple examples here that I found. I didn't find an exact one that matches. Did you find one that is the exact version of this anywhere?
I did not find an exact, no.
I looked for a
That's
long
pretty
time.
close though.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty similar. So I just think it's interesting that it's something that they would have carried.
Yeah, I nobody's carrying that. The one that you found is really cool. I kind of wish they had that one in the tower because of those like demonic looking faces in the centerpiece. That is cool.
Yeah, it would have been cool. This one says Spanish Renaissance cabinet carved in chestnut wood, 17th century. Top of this writing desk, we see these 2 statues. There is one on the left and one on the right. There is a bronze Chinese warrior blowing a horn on the right-hand side, which is estimated about $890 for just a reproduction of this statue. So not a small chunk of change. And then on the left side is a 19th century bronze samurai soldier. So just 2 little statues. And I was trying to figure out a meaning behind this, Kirk, and I couldn't figure out except for maybe just the Orient, the the Western Orientalism that we talked about, wanting those elements in their decor. That's as close as I got to why they have these here.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is the exact same thing. Like, it's like a status thing, having like, it kind of reminds me, honestly, Mel's uncle used to have all this kind of stuff. And it was like the same kind of era of like finding those things appealing, but they didn't necessarily go with the aesthetic of the room. It just was to show the significance or appeal of that style. There was such an obsession with the Eastern culture. I don't know, it's like a hodgepodgey decor,
Yeah. That was the style of the time. So there's also these flags that you see on top of the cabinet. Now, these are true to the countries that existed in 1939. The reason for these flags, I was like, why are we displaying them here? Well, this suggests that a hotel welcomed international guests and was cosmopolitan in nature. It also gave the impression of being a place where dignitaries, world travelers, and elites converged. It was also signaled to international guests, appearing friendly and accommodating to anybody from another country. It was a visual way of saying you belong here too, because we've got your flag over here in the corner. It's also a signal of political neutrality or diplomacy. So in a tense pre-World War II climate, especially in large cities, flag displays could signal a hotel's neutral hospitality toward all nations, which was important when hosting diplomats or international businessmen. So if you think of the time of 1939, it is starting to get to be more of a hostile time in the world, right? Which we saw from the newspaper that's all over the place in this particular hotel. So it makes sense then that, we would have these flags on display as like, we're politically neutral, we're welcoming to everybody. And I think that's what these flags are trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I used to stay at a hotel chain. It was called the Intercontinental, and they would always display that. And you're like, they spoke multiple languages too. So I wonder if the concierge also was somewhat fluent in other languages to maintain or help some of those ambassadors or international guests.
Yeah. I think that's probably pretty accurate. So something we do see in this area behind the desk is the Tip Top Club poster, which we've talked about previously. So I'm just going to briefly mention it, that it says the Anthony Fremont and his orchestra now appearing at the top of the tower. This is, of course, the club everybody was partying in, the masquerade ball in Halloween night in 1939. Anthony Fremont is a character from the episode It's a Good Life from season 3, episode 8. He is a little boy who basically makes everybody say everything's good around him. It's actually very psychological thriller, kind of scary, because he can read your thoughts. And if you're not thinking good thoughts all the time, you're going to end up in the cornfield. The cornfield's not a place you want to be. I will say, though, the thing we didn't really mention last time, Kirk, about this is that little Anthony hates when people sing. He really hates it. It's one of the things he hates the most is when people sing. So having him be Anthony Fremont and his orchestra is really interesting in this regard, because of his distaste he does like classical music. He likes music that doesn't have words in it, but he doesn't want people to sing. So Anthony Fremont's probably not singing in this orchestra, just saying.
Right.
Then we move to the area that is behind the desk, and there's this really unique chair that is sitting behind there. And I know, Kirk, you had a couple of things you wanted to talk about with that one.
Yeah, so this is a 19th century Renaissance revival Savonarola chair. The Savonarola chair originated in the 15th century Italy, named retroactively after Girolamo Savonarola, who was a friar. Sorry. My Italian ancestry right now is cringing.
Rolling in their graves.
Savonarola! What is Anyway, the original design was called an X-chair or a fouled stool, and it was meant to be folded really easily and portable, often used by clergy or nobility. It wasn't until the mid-late 19th century that Europe saw a revival of these Renaissance styles, especially for furniture, and they kind of romanticized this old world craftsmanship. This kind of clearly aligns look-wise or aesthetic-wise to the carved cabinet that we just saw, that writing desk.
Yeah.
And so this becomes more of a showpiece rather than something that's functional, even though it is functional. It's more about fit or form rather than fit, or fit rather than form. What's the right one?
Form? No, I don't know. Now I'm confused.
It's more for the look. It ain't for the sit. You know what I'm saying? So it's supposed to appear that it's more formal, authoritative, or intellectual, with these curved X shape, and then there's wooden spindles high back with dark stained hard woods, commonly made out of walnut or oak, and most of them were foldable, although the kind that I'm showing or the kind that's in the tower is not. So it's an elegant, authoritative desk chair.
Yeah, and I have another name for it. That was the Dante chair, is the one that doesn't fold. And I was like, well, that's interesting.
Oh.
And they said that's likely what this is, which is a really fascinating connection to Dante's Inferno. We chatted a lot about that before in our Mr. Toad series, but symbolism there for the afterlife and the great beyond. So having Dante's
it was
chair.
designed by clergy too, which is also weird. Like, why would they want to sit in a devil chair?
Well, I know that it was in the Victorian era that they maybe they named it that. It might have been a little bit different before that. I don't know for sure. But
this one has some creepy faces on the armrests.
It sure does. To me, it looks like they're almost like lions that were on it from what I saw. But I do know that the name came from the Victorian era. There was a resurgence of interest in Renaissance and medieval aesthetics, and furniture makers and collectors began naming styles after iconic cultural figures to evoke a sense of intellectual grandeur. So Dante, being the father of Italian literature, was a perfect symbol.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it is a really fascinating chair. Like, I found one that's very similar to it here. But I mean, I don't know if it's identical, but it's very, very close if it's not the exact same chair.
It's a scary chair.
It is a scary chair. And
it's like ominous, dude. I don't want to sit in that thing.
It does not look like something I would want to spend a lot of time in.
Dante chair, dude.
It's so
Get
true.
it away from me.
Behind the chair is a statue, a sculpture. You see a sculpture of of an eagle in flight. This is by Jules Monnier, who was an artist from 1835 to 1894 in France. Now, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about Jules Monnier when we get to the owl in the center of the room. So I'm not going to chat too much about the artist here at this point. But this one is cast in bronze, and it is, eagle in flight. And the stand, though, is weird. Like, it's got like a person holding up. It's definitely not, they're like mismatched, and they've stuck these two pieces together because I could not find anything about the stand. And you said you hadn't had a chance to look this one up, but here's what it looks like, the cast in bronze eagle in flight.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like Atlas a little bit. Like, because the person looks like they're in grotesque pain holding this eagle, but they are a mismatch. They do not belong together.
We also have a note in our chat from our good friend Joshua, who says that he sat in the chair like twice, and that was enough because it was very uncomfortable. So thanks for the first-hand account of just how uncomfortable that is. I think that's pretty good place for us to stop, just because that was a lot of information. And before we step into the center of the room, we have, the couple's corner, we have the couches, we have the fireplace, we have a lot left to go in this lobby. But this is a good place for us to pause for now. We do also have a very special episode coming up where our historian friend Joshua Harris is going to join us for an episode all about the bellhops. So very excited for that one, to have a guest on Distory, another historian. So that's coming up too. But for now, Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
Thanks for enjoying this brief episode of Hollywood Tower Hotel. I'm excited. Again, this lobby is so extensive. We have to group everything in like a bracketed grid so that we can move through this room in a way that's complete, but also is trackable. So I appreciate you guys like putting into your mind's eye where you're physically located in the lobby. So that was the front right, and we will move on into probably the back left and center next episode.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you next time for Distory.